Thank you, Rabbi.
Is it warm enough? Is it too warm? It will be soon. I want you to complain.
All right. I'm not going to go through any long introduction. We all know Cantor Rafii, and she's helping us by starting earlier because she has a lot of things to do. And so today she's just going to share with us the products of her field work on disseminating Persian-Jewish music. Cantor Rafii.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Hi, it's nice to see you as always. Thank you for having me today. Can you hear me? It's not on. Can you hear me now? Ah, there we go. All right. So it's such a pleasure to be here and to see you all. It's a fortuitous time for me to share about Persian Jewish prayer music. As you know, there are protests all over Iran right now. The people are asking for freedom from an oppressive, tyrannical regime, the same regime that exiled my family and the family of countless hundreds of thousands of other Jews, Baha'is, and moderate Muslims who were forced to leave or who chose to leave. And so this is a time that we are praying for the people of Iran to be successful. I'm praying that I can go back and visit the land where my family is from for 3,000 plus years before we came here, praying that I can go in my lifetime, take my daughters. My parents have not been back since they left over 40 years ago. It's not safe to go back for Jews, as you know, and it's just unbelievable that the places of their childhood are destroyed, renamed, completely taken over. So there are horrible things happening in the streets right now, protesters being killed, massacred, but a lot of brave young Iranians, especially women, have taken a forward step in this movement. Lots of brave Iranians taking to the streets with no internet, no power, and they're out there in the streets fighting for freedom. So my prayer is that they'll be successful and this oppressive regime will be overturned and replaced with a democratic and peaceful regime. And so it is fortuitous that I'm sharing about one part of my heritage, one part of my culture, and some of the background of the Jewish community in Iran, which used to be called Persia, now Iran, a very vibrant, very, very long-standing history and background. So I'm going to begin with a personal background. A lot of you know this about me, but in case you don't, I'll just share that I'm a first-generation American, which means that I was born here and raised here, but my parents and every generation before my parents, as far as we know, so up to 3,000 years ago, are from Persia. Again, modern-day Iran, but was called the Persian Empire for many years. However, though I have that strong Persian ancestry, I grew up at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, which is a Reform Ashkenazic synagogue. We were the first Persian family to join in 1991. My parents were quite progressive and forward-thinking, and my mom's reasoning was, well, at the Persian synagogues around Los Angeles, girls can't read Torah, and they can't do the things that boys can do. But look at this great Ashkenazic synagogue that's reformed, that has an Israeli religious school director who's a strong, tough woman. I want my daughter raised there, and I want my daughter and son to do the same things, to be able to do the same things. So I started there, and my parents made the schlep twice a week to Hancock Park from Westwood, and that was the greatest gift they could have given me with my Jewish education, because there is where I was inspired to become a cantor. There is where I developed my love of Jewish music. There is where I learned that girls can be clergy. It's unbelievable to think about that now because we look around and we see so many women clergy leaders, but as you know, it wasn't like that. And it was unthinkable for a woman in Iran and 50 plus years ago in the United States to be clergy. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm grateful for my mentors there for inspiring me to do that. I used to be an entertainment lawyer. As you know, I practiced law for a few years, and then through a series of wonderful serendipity events and a lot of heeding the call, which our people have done in our tradition, in the Bible, as we know, listening to the call and answering, Hineni, here I am. I switched career paths, and I'm very, very grateful to be a cantor and to be your cantor here at VBS now, going in through my fourth year. Thank you. Thank you. So I grew up with mostly Ashkenazic and contemporary American Jewish music, Jewish prayer music, Jewish song. Yet I have this 3,000 plus year history of Persian music and Persian culture in my background. And so how did I incorporate these two? How did I bring them together? Well, about 10 years ago, my dad shared with me that he had brought a cassette tape over from Iran when they fled in 1979. He had thought to bring a cassette tape, which had recorded the voice of his father of blessed memory, Yehuda Rafii, leading a Passover Seder in Tehran in 1971. And he said, we have this cassette tape somewhere in the house. So we looked for it and we found it. And I played the recording of my grandfather's voice. And as I heard his voice wash over me, I felt the tears streaming down my face as I realized here was a legacy, here was a heritage from Tehran. A Jewish man, deeply Zionist. My grandfather and my parents' families were deeply, deeply connected to Israel and deeply, deeply connected to their Jewish identity. Here he was leading a Passover Seder with Persian melodies, singing Hebrew with Persian melodies, and translating some of the Hebrew into Farsi as well. And I had this cassette tape in my hand, this treasure chest in my hand. So I said, what am I going to do with this? Fast forward to cantorial school, it's time to write my thesis, and I decided I'm going to study Persian-Jewish prayer music. It had never previously been notated, meaning the melodies had been passed down orally, oral transmission, but had never been notated onto sheet music, which means it was a secret club to learn these melodies. There was no way to learn these melodies unless you had a Persian ancestor or friend who could teach them to you. And of course, that is the way that melodies have been passed down for generations. So how was our Torah passed down before it was transcribed? It was transmitted orally. And that, by the way, fun fact, is why we chant Torah. Why do we chant Torah with trope as opposed to just reading it? Anyone know? Why do we chant Torah instead of just reading it? Easier to remember. For so many hundreds of years, it was passed down orally, and it was remembered because of melody. So melody is a mnemonic. It's something that helps us to remember, and melodies initially were orally passed down. So I took it upon myself to collect some Persian Jewish prayer melodies that I thought were really beautiful and frankly that I could track down, and to transcribe them, to notate them, to preserve them for future generations, A. B, to preserve them for myself, and C, to share them with the American Jewish community. Not only my cantorial and rabbinic colleagues who may choose to share these melodies in their synagogues, but also with any American or global Jewish person who wants to learn the melody and the music of a culture within Judaism. So that became my passion project, and I wrote this thesis, and I collected some field recording. I collected 7 melodies. Actually, I collected 6 melodies, and what this consisted of was okay, I'll tell you what I really did. I posted on Facebook. I said, I need to find Persian Jewish melodies. Tell me if you know anybody. And then I got inundated with messages. I know this person, I know this person, I know this person. And I ended up calling 50 to 75 different people and tracked down 6 melodies. They were recorded on my voicemail, some of them. And I transcribed them, painstakingly transcribed them, and then I also composed one melody as well, and since have composed a few Persian-inspired melodies. So it was a total of 7 melodies. I did this deep dive. I'm going to share 4 of them with you today and share some background, and I'll open it up for questions at the end. I'd love to hear your reactions, responses, and your questions. Okay, so big picture, let's start with, this was the name of my thesis, by the way, Music of an Ancient Jewish Family, Recovering, Preserving, and Disseminating the Prayer Music of Persian Jews. Okay, so why do you care? Why do we care? Why learn Persian Jewish music? Because it's beautiful. Thanks, Sandy. Thank you. I happen to think so, but I'm biased. But why? We live in America. We're American Jews. It's my heritage, but it's not necessarily your heritage. Why should you learn it? Yes. Thank you. The family of Jews is made up of many different cultures, and it belongs to all of us. And we are all enriched by learning about the cultures of our fellow family, our large extended family of Jews. So one, we open our hearts and minds to the diversity of our people. We have been faced with persecution and resentment for being the other. So let's not other Jews. We are a tent. Let's welcome one another. Second reason is we know that anti-Semitism is rampant. We know that people don't understand Jews. And one of the greatest misunderstandings of Jews is that they are a monolithic white colonizer, which I find to be ridiculous. But we know that there are so many Jews from around the world. There are Jews of color. There are Jews from the Middle East. There are Jews from Eastern Europe. There are Jews from Spain. There are Jews have lived in almost every country of the world. So to share about the different types of Jews in the world also is a way to educate people around the world that we are not just one thing. Why else should we study Persian-Jewish music? Do any of you know this, one of my favorite quotes of Jewish thought? Rav Kook said, "The old shall be made new, and the new shall be made holy." Which means that tradition, the old, and innovation, the new, I believe, need to exist together for our culture and our traditions to survive and thrive. They must exist together. If something stays unchanged, it will die. But if something is completely changed without respect for what came before, I think that it doesn't carry that weight of tradition. So part of the reason that we learn Jewish music today and Persian Jewish music, part of why I did this project, I completed this project, was I didn't want to exactly preserve Persian Jewish prayer music the way that it was before. I wanted to find a way to integrate it into our American Jewish life, prayer services, and programming. And how would I do that? As I'll dive into later, Persian Jewish prayer music never was accompanied. It never had harmony. It never had chords. And there are lots of characteristics of Persian music, such as something called a yodel, like a that you can't really incorporate without some changes. Otherwise, it feels very much like it's not at home. So there are changes that I made respectfully, and I'll talk about those. Okay, so I want to share a little bit about Persian Jews. So this is just a photo of some of the Jewish communities around the world: a Polish Jewish community, Ethiopian Jewish community, Israeli Jewish community, and a Yemenite Jewish community, just to show our diversity. And this is a picture of my family from Hamadan, Iran. This is a picture, I believe it's from did I write what year it's from? This is from 1925. So Hamadan, this is my great-grandfather, Meir, my father's father. This is a cousin, a musician. And these are other members of the family that I can't name for you. But Hamadan, who knows what is the significance of Hamadan in our tradition? One of the stories of our people takes place in, I think it's a setar or a tar. Yeah, it's not an oud. Oud is an Arabic instrument, yes. And Iran is not an Arabic country. It's not even Middle Eastern. It's Indo-European, by the way. Okay, so what is the significance of Hamadan? I'll give you a clue. It used to have a different name. Esther. Shushan, yeah, hi, by the way. Yes, Shushan. It's where the story of Purim took place. So Esther is from Hamadan. So that's my claim to fame, by the way. I must be related to Esther, right? I don't know. All right, so that's my family. So background of Persian Jew. So in case anybody asks you, or in case you see somebody who's a Persian Jew, you might consider them Sephardic. But are they Sephardic? Persian Jews Sephardic? They're not, because Sephardic Jews are from Spain, the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. Some of them, when they left during the exile, Inquisition, they left and settled in Kashan, which is a city in the south of Iran. South of Iran. Kashan's in the south? In the middle, thank you. So there are Sephardic Jews that settled in Kashan. And so I have a friend whose grandfather speaks Ladino. He's Persian, speaks Ladino, it's beautiful. But most of those Jews settled in the Mediterranean and the Middle East. So we're not Sephardic Jews, Persian Jews. Some Persian Jews call themselves or are called Mizrahi, which means Eastern. from the East, Eastern Jews, but that's not even quite that accurate, because once again, that really refers to Middle Eastern Jews, and Iran is technically not the Middle East. Believe it or not, it's not the Middle East, it's Indo-European, it's Asian and Indian and European. I mean, it's like a, considered technically to be on the border of these three continents. So really, the most accurate way to refer to Persian Jews is Persian Jews, that's right, that's right. That's right. But people like to label and classify. So yes, Persian Jews, the customs are more similar to Sephardic Jews than they are to Ashkenazic Jews. Like, we eat rice on Passover. And, that's maybe something. And the music is similar. And, some of the way that we celebrate Judaism is similar. But it's not the same culture. As I mentioned, there's a 3,000-year history of Jews in Persia. So it's one of the oldest diaspora communities, one of the oldest communities of Jews outside Israel. In 539 BCE, so here's the history. 721 BCE, after the destruction of the first temple, the Assyrian king relocated many Israelites, forced them out to the Medes, M-E-D-E-S, which became the Persian Empire. Cyrus the Great in 539 conquered Babylon and allowed everyone to practice their religion freely. And many Jews chose to remain and migrate further east and settle throughout the Persian Empire. For 1,000 years after Cyrus the Great, Jews celebrated and enjoyed basic freedoms and rights. They had high-ranking positions in society until 636 CE. When the Islamic conquest of Persia forced many Jews and other minorities to be relegated to second-class status. And since then, there was up and down ebbs and flows of great persecution of the Jews in the Persian Empire. At the end, by the way, I misspoke. I said 721, the destruction of the first temple. That's not when that happened. In 721, there was a great persecution and conquest of Israel by the Assyrians, and that's when a lot of Israelites were relocated to the Medes. Okay, at the end of the 19th century, the British and French Jews around the world, specifically British and French Jews, started to support the Jews of Iran, and they established schools in Tehran and Hamadan, and that's where my grandparents studied, actually, and that's why they learned French, because Alliance Israélite was a French school in Hamadan. That's where my grandmother, my father's mother, learned about Judaism. It was a Jewish school that was sponsored by the French. She learned about Judaism, and she learned French as a result, and that was responsible for education and support. Okay, so then there was the Pahlavi dynasty. So like I said, there were a lot of dynasties that ebbed and flowed the support of Jews and how they lived. The Pahlavi dynasty beginning in 1925, which is when this picture was taken. It was a father and his son. They embarked on a massive westernization and modernization of Persia. And so this is where you saw a lot of secularization. You saw discriminatory laws against Jews being completely abolished, and the circumstances of life for Jews in Iran really, really blossomed. They really enjoyed it. And that's why you'll see a lot of, have you seen these protests going on in Westwood? You'll see a lot of Persian Jews are saying, like, let's go back to the time of the Shah. And that seems odd to think, like, why would we want to go back to a monarchy if we want democratic society? It's because under the Shah, Persia was very westernized, very secular, very free, very open. Yes, it was somewhat of a dictatorship, and religious people who opposed the king were in trouble and were squashed. But it was generally a time of peace, of calm, and of religious freedom. Islamic Revolution of 1979, violence and persecution. Jews were no longer safe, and they left Iran, fled Iran. A population of 85,000 dwindled to like 10,000 who live there today. And at the time it was 85,000. It was hundreds of thousands. They left 85,000, and since then it's now down to 10 to 20,000. There's terrible conditions, severe repression. You're not allowed to say that you support Israel. Of course not. Jews have to pretend that they hate Israel. Otherwise they'll be seen as spies for Israel. So most have emigrated to the US and Israel. and the majority are in Los Angeles, where I live. All right, that was probably more detail than you ever wanted to know, but I wanted to put everything out there just to clarify the history of Persian Jews, and now you can feel like, all right, I understand when I see the protests going on, that's the history, that's why that's taking place. All right, let's dive into some music. So what is Persian music? And what is Persian Jewish music? So you already know what some of this music is like. I think everybody here, who here is familiar with music somewhat, like music theory? Raise your hand if you're kind of familiar. Who here is kind of familiar with music theory? Music theory. Okay, you're familiar with like a scale, like a C major scale? I'll play a C major scale. Okay, so there are 12 tones in a Western scale. If you know the music of Bach and Beethoven, this is all Western music. Scales, major chords, minor chords. That's not Jewish music. That's not. Today, we have contemporary Jewish music, which very much follows that, and chords, and 4-1, 5-4-1. But that's not Jewish music. Ashkenazic, Persian, Arabic, it's not that music. Jewish music, in general, is modal. Okay, what does that mean? What does it mean for Jewish music to be modal? It means that it's made up of short blocks called motifs, little melodies that are put together and then improvised upon. So I'm going to give you an example. Who here has heard davening in the shul? Who here has heard davening? Prayer, davening in the shul. Okay, so davening follows nusach. It follows these little modes that you've heard and that you hear and you go, I know that mode. So I'm going to give you a high holiday mode. Are you ready? This is a motif. Yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la. Ashkenazic, modal. That mode is throughout all of the evening of high holidays. Okay, I'm going to give you another mode. Are you ready? 40 שנה כות בדור ואמרם תולי לבבם הם לא ידעו דרכי אשר נשבעתי ויפי. That is called Adonai Malach, another Ashkenazic mode, Kabbalat Shabbat Nusach. I'm going to give you one more. שוכן עד מרום בקדוש שמו. Shabbat morning, Shachari, that's Magen Avot. It's a minor mode. And finally, my favorite one. Hava nagila, hava nagila, hava nagila venisnacha. That's actually a prayer mode. It's also in Fiddler on the Roof. What is it? Tradition. That's called, that is called Ahava Rabbah. That is the Fregish mode. Let me think of an example. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, מבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, מה אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב הרבים. That's again a mode for Nusach. Okay, so does everyone understand what I mean by modes now? It's little melodies, melodies that you're putting together, and that tells us what Jewish music is. Yes? Questions about that? Are we enjoying this, or is this too much detail of music theory? It's okay? All right. Okay, good. All right, so we've got modes in the Ashkenazi world. So you thought Ashkenazic and Persian music were so different. Persian music is exactly the same. And Persian Jewish music is exactly the same. It's modes. Modes. They're called dastgah. Arabic music, upon which Sephardic melodies are derived. Sephardic melodies are taken from the Arabic modal system, which is called makam. Same thing, modes. A makam is a mode. So I'm going to give you 3 examples of how we have 3 of the exact same modes across 3 different cultures. So I shared with you Ahava Rabbah, which is the Hava Nagila mode, right? It's called Fregish, right? So that's our, again, Shabbat morning. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Fregish mode. All right. So the makam in Sephardic music. Cuando rey Nimrod al campo salía, miraba en el cielo y en la estrella, vino una luz santa. Again, same mode. And then in Persian music, the same thing. So this is called dastgah Daska Homayun, which is, again, the same mode. So, Micha mocha ba'elim Adonai, Mika mocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tekilot, osefele, malchutecha rauvanecha. Okay, so these are all things that sound about the same in terms of the connection, the relationship between the notes. Okay, so that's Persian-Jewish music. That's modal music in a nutshell for you. And one thing that's really beautiful to think about is that if our music is the same, even though we're separated by thousands of miles, but when you get to the root of our music, the modes are the same between Ashkenazic music, which derives from Eastern Europe, and Persian music, and Sephardic Arabic music. If the modes are all the same, what does that say about us as Jews and about us as humanity? Shema Yisrael, right? Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. We are all connected as Jews around the world, and on an even wider scale, humanity is really connected. So much of our culture and identity comes from music, and so much of our music is shared, including the very building blocks of our music. Any questions about modes, the modal system? Okay. Good. So, yes? Great question. Great question. Okay. Tempo is like a fixed tempo is very Western, to your point. So 4/4, here's what 4/4 is. This is what 4/4 sounds like. Let me make sure this is on too. Okay. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Western, contemporary American Jewish music, right? Okay. And I also played you some chords. 1, 5, 6, 4. 1, 5. One day, one day, one day. Matisyahu, one day. All right, so much of our music is like this. Persian music does not have a regular tempo. It changes tempo consistently. So even putting a time signature is very complicated because it's so free-flowing and so improvisational. So when I was notating the music, it was very hard to do that, but you'll see I notated it starts in 4/4, then it goes to 5/4, then 6/4, then back to 4/4, then 5/4, meaning that there are, instead of 4 beats per measure on a regular basis, there's sometimes 4 beats per measure, then 5 beats, then 6 beats, then 4 beats, then 5 beats. There's no consistent rhythm. It's more free-flowing and improvisational. That's why it's also hard to put chords to it, and it's hard to have like a band accompany. Just like jazz is so improvisational, I would say it's similar with Persian music. Thank you. Good question. Okay. All right, are we ready to hear a song now? Are we ready to see this in action? So this is the piece that inspired the entire project and that inspired my passion. This is Psalm 113, which is part of Hallel. It's chanted at all of our festival services, and it's also chanted at the Passover Seder at the end of the service. So the voice of my grandfather that I heard on that cassette tape, it was the entire Passover service, and the pinnacle, the climax of his singing happened here. Hallelujah, Psalm 113. He took this psalm, he sang one line in Hebrew, and then he translated the entire psalm into Farsi. And we think that he composed the melody that went along with it using Persian modes, what we just talked about, daska. So here's a translation of Psalm 113. In English, praise, O God, O servants of God, praise God's name. Let God's name be blessed from now to eternity. From east to west, the name of God is praised. So this is a psalm of praise, a psalm of gratitude. Look at God's great splendor and awe. God raises up the poor from the dirt. From ashes raises up the person who has nothing. God seats the needy person with nobles. God seats the barren woman with children at home. God is a miracle worker, right? A dream maker. And here's my grandfather, of blessed memory, Yehuda Rafii. Oh, yes. He never, he did come to this country, yes. He came to this country, and he was, because he died in 1976, so he came to New York in 1975 with my grandmother. And right now I am blanking on, he is buried in New York. I'm blanking on whether he officially had emigrated. I don't remember. My grandmother certainly did, because she lived here for about 15 years before she passed away as an immigrant. But I don't know if I have to. I'm blanking right now. On whether he formally immigrated. So my grandfather Yehuda. This is my father's father, and here is his voice singing Hallelujah.
یودا رفیعی میخوانه این شب عید را به همگی دور به نزدیک تبریک عرض میکنم.
Introduction.
به این هلل را برای سلامتی همگی میخوانم. هللویا هللویا عبد ادونای هللویا تشم ادونای مدح گویید خدا را مدح گویید ای بندگان خدا مدح گویید اسم خدا را باشد اسم از دم خدا تبرک از حال تا ابدالدهر.
Okay, you get an idea of his voice. Of course, think about it. This went on a journey from Iran to the United States, and it's a tape that's decades and decades old, but so the quality is not great, but we're hoping to restore it to its original form. All right, so what did I do with that melody? I moved it up a couple of steps so that it would be a little bit more of a singable key, because it was quite a low key. I added some chords to it. I added a time signature, and I added musical accompaniment, and I wrote it out so it looks like this. Here it is. And if you hear me chant Hallel at VBS, this is the first psalm of Hallel. I follow most of Aloni's Hallel, which is the tradition here, so with full respect and love for the tradition at VBS. But for this one psalm, I include a Persian melody here. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Avdei Adonai, Hallelujah, Et Shem Adonai, Yehi Shem Adonai, Mevorach, Me'ata ve'ad olam, B'mizrach shemesh ad mevaor, Mehulal Shem Adonai, Ram al kol goyim, Adonai al hashamayim kevodo, and so on. So thank you. So you'll see that wasn't really that wasn't a consistent tempo. I kind of expanded some of the notes and held it out a little bit longer. So anybody accompanying this would have to kind of listen and use their ear and follow along in a different way than having rigid sheet music. But the sheet music does help. Okay, so that's Hallelujah. The next piece. Where did I study music? I studied, growing up, I just took private piano lessons, and I did with Mehri Kwanzad, a Persian-Jewish teacher, but I just studied classical music. I didn't really study Persian music, I studied classical music. I did not get a degree in music. Oh, thank you so much. No, I didn't get a degree. I sang in choirs my entire life, in the advanced choir in middle school and high school and college. And so by that, I learned a lot of music theory, and I studied piano for 18 years privately, and took all the theory classes and tests and exams and everything, but it was private. I will share like a tangent. I haven't usually shared the story, but when I was at UCLA undergrad, I didn't know what I wanted to study. And I was very, very torn. And I said, I love music. I love Judaism. What am I going to do? What am I going to study? I went back and forth, undeclared major. And finally, one day I said, you know what? I want to study composition. Many of you know I love to compose music. It's one of my greatest passions in the world. And one of the things that brings me the greatest joy in being a cantor is getting to reinterpret Jewish texts and write music. So I said, I didn't know at the time it would be focused on Jewish music, but I just knew I loved to write music. So I went to the Herb Alpert School of Music at UCLA, and I went to the dean. One day I set up a meeting. I said, hello. No, I started singing when I was a lot younger. When I was a teenager, I started taking voice lessons at age 15. So I went to the dean, and I said, who shall remain unnamed. He had a big impact, but not in a positive way. And I said, look, I'm a freshman here. I've been here. It's the spring of my freshman year. I know that I want to study music. I love music. I really want to formalize my music education, and I love composition. Can you help me, like, enroll in the music school? Like, what do I need to do? And he took one look at me, and he frowned, and he said, here, let me show you what the portfolio of a composition student looks like. And he proceeded to intimidate me by showing, like, a 20-page, 6-part orchestral arrangement that one of the freshman students had written. And he said, you're looking at 6 years of undergrad, lots of hard work. I don't even know if you can graduate in 6 years, and a really competitive program. Are you sure you want to do this? Maybe you should stick to poli-sci. Okay, at the time, I didn't have the grit and resilience to say, like, I don't care what you say, I'm doing this. All right, 6 years or not, I'll do it. And by the way, it was supposed to take 6 or 7 years to graduate cantorial school, and I did it in 4.5 years through a series of, so it's not always what people tell you, as you know. You don't have to listen to somebody's like regimented way of doing things. But I could have done other things. I could have done a music education major. I could have gotten in right away as a music education major and just taken composition classes. So that's one of the forks in the road of my life where like I have a twinge of like, what would have happened if I just studied music? But it all worked out. It all worked out for the best because I needed to go to law school. I needed to have that in my background, in my life, and I needed to have a windy road to get to where I am today. I wouldn't have, who knows how I would have ended up. So that's the story. I haven't shared that with anybody in many, many years. Thanks for asking. Yeah, thanks for asking. Okay, so, but can you imagine turning away a student like that? It was not very nice. Okay, Lecha Dodi. Are we familiar with Lecha Dodi? Friday night, right? A Friday night beautiful poem of Kabbalat Shabbat. It's by Rabbi Solomon Alkabetz, Shlomo HaLevi of Sfat, 16th century. I learned this from Isaac Budai, who's from Tehran, Iran, in the Abrishami synagogue. That's where he learned it, and he taught it to me. So I recorded his voice, and I notated it. So you'll hear what that sounds like. Lecha Dodi is, come, my friend, to meet the bride. Let us welcome Shabbat. Observe, remember, God, the one God announced to us. God is one. God's name is one. For fame, for glory, for praise. It's such a beautiful, beautiful poem. Wait. Okay. I don't know what that is, but okay. We'll just leave that there. Here it is. Here's Lecha Dodi. Again, a changing rhythmic structure. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Oh, look at that. It's a video. Ha! I didn't connect sound. All right, so if you want, I'm going to pause this. Oh, there is sound. Okay, I'm not going to do that, though. That's not part of the presentation. Sorry. If you want to hear it, just look up Lecha Dodi, Jacqueline Rafii on YouTube, and you'll hear a performance of it that I did as my senior recital, my senior cantorial recital. I performed all these pieces with a beautiful ensemble of musicians. So you can hear it there. But I'm going to do it live for you. Here we go. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmi'anu al ha'meyuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad Hashem u'tiferet v'litila Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תהילה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. Pretty neat, right? That's the Chadodi. Okay, one more. Two more. Yes. You do, good question. So you just do, the way that I did it was da 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 dum. I do 16th notes. Da 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 dum. Another way to do a trill is to do this little symbol. There's something that you can't notate. Thank you for bringing this up. There's two things that are really difficult to notate. One is a micro flat or a micro note. What does that mean? So on a piano, we have like half note degrees of separation. So you have, right? La, 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 la. But there are notes between those notes as well. There are quarter tones. The violin can capture those. There's a quarter tone piano that can capture those as well. And our voice can capture those. Okay, so what's the note between that? That's a whole range, isn't it? And there's a note in between those two. That's a quarter tone or a micro flat. It's hard to capture that on a Western notation system. The way you do it is a backwards flat. That's how you do it. Another thing it's hard to capture is something called tahrir. Tahrir. It's a vocal style. The equivalent would be yodeling. And I can't do justice to it. Tahrir, right? I can't. Cha-cha, exactly. But I heard like the scholarly way to do it is tahrir. Cha-cha. So I, like, with full respect, I don't know how to do cha-cha, but like the way to like, like that. It's like a, it's improvisation and it's beautiful, and not when I do it, but it's beautiful. And it's very passionate, and it's actually not, some of my research showed that wasn't traditional. It was not traditional to pray like that in a synagogue. That's more contemporary or classical Persian singing, but it's not really seen as respectful to pray with that kind of like melisma. All right, next piece is El Nora Alila. Who's familiar with El Nora Alila? Which prayer service? Yom Kippur, which one? Which service of Yom Kippur? There's 5. Ne'ilah. The last service of Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah, as the gates are closing, we're begging for God to hear our prayer and to inscribe us and to seal us for a good life and a good year ahead. El Nora Alila asks God to hear our prayer before sundown, before the gates of heaven are closed. And the text is by Moshe ibn Ezra of Spain, Sephardic. This is a Sephardic poem. It's called a piyut, but in the 19th century, it started to be incorporated in all of the Sidurim around the world, including Ashkenazic Sidurim. So now in every Ashkenazic prayer book, including ours for high holidays, El Nora Alila is found. This was heard by Yonah and Farid Dardashti in Tehran, Iran. Yonah Dardashti was a very, very well-known classical Persian singer. He was Jewish, and his sons, Farid and Howard, emigrated to the United States, and they both became cantors. And Farid's daughter, Galit Dardashti, are you familiar with who she is? She's an anthropologist and a musician, and she also is very passionate and learned in disseminating Persian-Jewish prayer music and Persian-Jewish music. So she taught me this melody. I'm grateful to her. El Nora Alila. God of awe, God of might, grant us pardon in this hour as our gates are closed this night. Farid was here. He was here for 3 years as a cantor before Herschel Fox. Cantor Farid Dardashti, yes. Okay, that's her version. So again, she did the same thing. She took a melody that was not traditionally accompanied, that didn't have a regular rhythmic meter, and she applied accompaniment and meter and, taught her musicians it, but she had never notated it. So I listened to her recording and I notated it into sheet music. This is like another study that I did. All the El Nora Alila melodies around the world, almost all of them have a similar structure in their melody, which is really fascinating to think about. Again, showing our unity. Okay, so we'll go back to El Nora Alila and I'll play it for you a little bit. I'm going to teach it to you. Okay, here we go. El Nora Alila, go. El Nora Alila, Hamse lanu Mechila. Let's put that together. Hamse lanu Mechila. Bisha'at ha'ne'ilah. El Nora Alila, El Nora Alila, Hamse lanu Mechila, Bisha'at ha'ne'ilah. Go, El Nora. You can do it. Hamse lanu Mechila, Bisha'at ha'ne'ilah. Beautiful, very nice. Bravo, bravo to you, very nice. Okay, final melody is one that I composed. So hearing the modes of Persian music and Sephardic music, I combined them together and I imagined Miriam leading the women in this dance across the parted sea. In this song, Miriam was the first songwriter. She was the first cantor of our people, because if you think about it, Mi Chamocha is the first moment of communal prayer in the entire Jewish Bible, the first moment of communal prayer where Jews get together and sing together and pray together. It's Mi Chamocha. And we have evidence, literary evidence, that Miriam actually composed the song, and then Moses took it to the rest of the Israelites, but she wrote it and shared it with the women. And they had their timbrels and they danced. So I imagine Miriam, from Israel, from the land of Israel, from the wilderness, from Egypt, and then from the wilderness and land of Israel. The modes would not be Ashkenazic modes necessarily. It wouldn't be contemporary American sounding like the Michamochas that we have that are beautiful, but it would probably have a little of a Sephardic Middle Eastern, what we call now Persian flair, perhaps. So this is how I imagined it. You've heard me sing this here. So I made it a call and response, again, because the Hebrew in that passage of Torah says that it's not that Miriam sang, it's Miriam answered this song. So the rabbis infer that means that it was a call and answer. So she was also the first song leader. Okay, ready? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ele, nora tehilot osef ele. And then, so I've incorporated this in our prayer services, and also I've taught the youth choir how to sing this, so they sing it. And then a few years ago, I asked my mom, who's a poet in her own right, to translate the Hebrew into Farsi and to write a Persian translation of the chorus. So it goes like this. Kist مثل تو ای خدا در میان آسمان کیست مثل تو با شکوه در تقدس شگفت در ستایش سازنده معجزه سازنده معجزه. Pretty good, right? Farsi? All right, and that's cool. That's what Micha Mocha means. It's a translation of Micha Mocha. So there's Micha Mocha. Yes.
In ultra-Orthodox synagogues, they don't want to hear women's voices
Yeah.
or women singing.
Yes.
And yet, why don't they recognize that?
Why don't they recognize
Miriam.
Why don't they
With the
recognize
story,
Miriam?
yes.
That's a great question. That's why I'm not an Orthodox cantor. Thank you. Yes, it's because, to answer your question, because this was a Talmudic dictum, not a law, dictum, just something said by a Rav Shmuel at some point, that a woman, kol be'isha erva, a woman's voice is nakedness. It's immodest. It's impure. It might, not kosher thoughts may arise in men if they hear a woman's voice. Totally outdated, hypocritical, and was not even absorbed into the Talmud as law by any means, but a lot of ultra-Orthodox communities took this as took this into their canon of like modesty and yeah, I of course don't ascribe to it. I don't ascribe to it, and I wouldn't be. Of course, I wouldn't, but I also wouldn't be able to be a cantor, and it would be erasing the voices of women and erasing the influence of women's voices, and also relegating a woman's voice to something that it's not. It's characterizing a woman's voice in a very disrespectful way. So thank you for bringing that up. It's something that causes a lot of pain to women clergy and women leaders. And think about Debbie Friedman, if she wasn't allowed to, think about what a tragedy that would be. Yes.
Okay, my grandfather was a rabbi, and my family's from Persia on my mother's side for thousands of years also.
Yes.
He went and was ordained in Iraq at Beit Zilcha. That's in my book, which I have for you,
Incredible.
by the way.
Okay.
And Beit Zilcha. Now, I want to know where the
Yes.
rabbis used to study then from Persia. Why did he go to Iraq to study?
Okay, great question. So to answer this question, the Jewish knowledge and Jewish education was imported into Iran. So the people that taught in the Jewish schools in Iran were from Israel or were from the surrounding Arabic countries, as far as I understand it. So my cousin, for example, who went to Jewish school, she learned like how to chant the Friday night Kiddush. Okay, the Erev Shabbat Kiddush. She learned it from her rabbi who was from Jerusalem, who came into her school in Tehran to teach them. And he brought all the melodies from Israel, which were like more Sephardic Yerushalmi melodies. So it wasn't really Persian melodies. So, which also lends itself to the idea that perhaps a lot of Persian Jewish prayer music, it's not purely Persian classical music. It's also like influenced by Arabic music. It's influenced by Israeli Yerushalmi music. Yes, let me just get to some other people, but I'll get to, yes, other questions, yes.
But also, wasn't it also that women, when they had their period, they were impure? So the women, when they have their period, they're impure. So they're not, they were considered, right?
That's actually not a related, it's not a related prohibition. That has to do, the impurity, that's separate from the voice, because women, whether they...
But that's why they couldn't go read Torah?
Couldn't touch the Torah. Yeah, one of the ideas was that it's possible that women are menstruating, and because they're impure when they're menstruating in a very outdated law, that means they can't touch the Torah. So just in case someone is in nida, in her period of, yeah, exactly, yeah, outdated. We don't ascribe to that here. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. We have so many questions, and then, yeah, of course. No, I love it. I love it. Yes.
Who wants it? Oh, I can
Go ahead.
project.
No, for the people on the live stream.
I'm sorry?
For the people who are watching remotely.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out your theme.
Yeah.
And I assume that your theme is that the prayer, the singing in the shul, the prayer songs, they are somewhat influenced by the Persian culture. But to my layman's ear, I mean, you can talk technical, this diphthong, that diphthong, I don't know what you're talking about, but okay. But to my layman's ear, it sounds traditional. I don't hear. Now, when you started chanting what they sing on the street outside, that sounded Persian. But what you're singing to me, to my layman's ear, it sounds very traditional. I don't hear the difference. And I can't really follow all your technical. I put a pause here, I put a diphthong there.
Yeah.
But the songs themselves,
Yeah, they sound traditional.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for bringing that point up, and thank you also for reminding me I need to walk away from this talk with one theme, one idea to leave you all with. In response to what you said, that was the goal of my work, was to make the songs, to incorporate them into American Jewish life, so that they don't sound so different that they're inaccessible. The point is that they still have the modes of Persian Jewish prayer music and still have the feel of Persian Jewish prayer music, but that they've been adapted so that any musician could come and look at the chart, could come look at the sheet music and play, and that any congregant could eventually learn the melody and sing along. That's why.
What I said is the actual Persian prayer, not what you're doing, but the actual Persian prayer, I don't hear the difference.
Which actual Persian prayer?
Well, you were singing different things, and I didn't hear the difference.
Do you mean like when I was singing, for example, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Avdei Adonai, my grandfather's melody? Yeah.
It doesn't sound
Yeah.
uniquely Persian.
So I did answer your question. Let me try saying it a different way. Maybe I wasn't clear. I have retranscribed and reinterpreted those melodies to sound a little more Western so that it does sound more similar to your ear. You heard my grandfather sing it. That was how he sung it. Did you hear what I put to the microphone? My grandfather's voice? Got it. Okay. Good question. Yes.
Isn't there, in the Ashkenazic, there's
Yes.
the minor key is in a specific order, and in Sephardic music, the minor is in a different place. That's one of the differences? Isn't that? Noreen had explained it one time.
So there is there's minor in both traditions.
Minor, but in a different place. It's not. It's she.
Okay. I'm done. I have to run. I'm done. It's good timing. We're done.
Do we have to do something about that?
I think, with respect to Noreen, and I have to talk to her and see what she meant, I think it's a simplified explanation. So,
Everybody.
Sephardic music is very sad and sorrowful and longing. All of the Sephardic music songs are sad.
Okay, he's done.
I'd have to have a discussion with Noreen because I don't agree. That's interesting. I don't agree. I think it's true that the Ashkenazi. So it's true that that some of the Ashkenazic music is more like mournful, and the Sephardic music and culture has a reputation for being more joyful and warm and things like that, and because of also the percussive element and the rhythmic element. But Persian music is very sorrowful. And I think there's more nuance to that. It's interesting, but I'd want to have a conversation with her and see what she meant by that. I don't know that I agree, and I love her, and I adore her, and respect her. Okay, other questions, and then I have to run. Are there any concluding questions? I know you had one more. drill is over.
We all passed the earthquake drill successfully. Congratulations.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes. Final question.
So my question is very unusual, as usual. Chinese is written in one language, using the same language that everyone who doesn't speak the same dialect understands. Hebrew is written in Hebrew, the same thing for everyone, and all the Jews in different places in the world, even Arabs, don't understand some of each other because they have different dialects, right? And Persian is completely different from Arabic. How come it's the same thing as the Chinese? The Hebrew language is written in the same way, and everyone understands it from every country. They're reading it, aren't they? The question is, Hebrew is written for everyone to understand, all Jews all over the world, the same way, and yet they don't speak the same language. In other words, the dialects are different, but Hebrew is understood by everyone, and the meaning of Hebrew is understood by everyone.
Yes, so what's the question?
That's the question. How does that work?
How does it work that Hebrew is understood by everyone with the same, but there's only one dialect of Hebrew, is like what you're saying?
There is one, yeah, and everybody from every different language understands the Hebrew.
Yes. Yes. Okay, we have to talk more. I'm not sure that I comprehend the question. Yes.
Persian, all different, right? And yet they all understand the Hebrew, the meaning of the Hebrew words.
Okay, we'll talk more about this because I'm not sure I understand. But yes, Hebrew is the universal language of the Jews, and we are blessed that it is our universal. And by the way, fun fact, tying this to Persian Jews, Judeo-Persian, do you know what that is? Judeo-Persian? It's the Farsi language written with Hebrew letters. Farsi language written with Hebrew letters. All right, everybody, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here. And the one takeaway I hope that you had from this talk is that we are all enriched learning about the different cultures within our Jewish family. And our programming and our prayer is enriched when we can not only build upon the traditions of our ancestors and stand on the shoulders of our ancestors and honor that tradition, but also be a little creative and ensure that our tradition adapts and evolves and refreshes. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Cantor, for helping us out.